I'm bundled up today. The fall chill is settling here in Ithaca, maybe not this bad, but it means, right, more people are going to start moving indoors. Last year, this is when we saw our large national COVID-19 wave. Here we are a year later with a large portion of the population vaccinated now, with vaccination rates beginning to go back up. But we'll see what happens. But I want to stress that, our classic mitigation practices are still important. Even if you are vaccinated, I would be mindful of the distance between you and others and be wearing your face coverings when you're close to others. Now, if you're a food or grocery worker and you've had the Pfizer vaccine, you are now eligible for a booster, and I highly recommend taking advantage of that. Now, with the change of season, it's got everyone talking about the holidays and the challenges, right, of getting toys and things like that. COVID-19 has had a huge impact on the supply chain of many products, and I'm sure several of you here on this call have dealt with it yourselves over the last year and a half. If you're importing foods, beverages, ingredients, this can be a big challenge and risk if you find yourself having to switch suppliers. And it's likely even a sourcing issue for your suppliers themselves. So this kind of systemic stress can really open the door to unsafe food practices. And so to give us a perspective on these challenges and the new era of food safety, we're going to be starting off this office hours with a special guest, Dr. Donald Prater. He's the Associate Commissioner for the Imported Food Safety. In his current capacity, he reports to the Deputy Commissioner for Food Policy and Response, and he serves as a member of the OFPR's executive leadership team, providing direction and management to all imported food safety programs under the jurisdiction of the Deputy Commissioner of FPR. In addition, he also serves as a senior scientific advisor and technical expert, supporting the Deputy Commissioner on matters related to human and animal food safety and the implementation of the Food Safety Modernization Act to ensure the safety of the U.S. food supply. Now, previously, Dr. Prater was the Assistant Commissioner for Food Safety Integration, serving as the principal spokesperson on behalf of FDA's Food and Veterinary Medicine Program for import discussions with external stakeholders, including foreign governments, as well as being responsible for import-related strategic resource planning activities. And so during his time, he's been at FDA for a while. He served as the director of FDA's Europe office in Brussels, Belgium, and the Department of Health and Human Services country representative to the EU. So we're really happy to have him here with us today. I'm going to first introduce the rest of the panel and then hand it over to Al to give us an update on the webpage, our COVID-19 webpage, and then we'll pass it over to Dr. Prater to give us his talk and then get into the Q&As. So start getting your questions ready. Today, joining us, we've got Dr. Randy Warabo, who's a professor here in the Department of Food Science with a focus on fruit and vegetable safety. We've got Dr. Elizabeth Bin, who's the executive director of the Institute for Food Safety at Cornell University and the director of the Produce Safety Alliance. We've got Dr. Martin Weidman, the Gellert Family Professor in Food Safety. He's also the co-director of the New York State Integrated Food Safety Center of Excellence. I'm going to have to jump off at 12:30. He's going to be taking over for me. We got Dr. Aliosa Krimic, who's our extension associate and COVID-19 resource guru. We've got Dr. Callie Neal, who's a professor of microbial food safety from the Department of Animal and Food Sciences at the University of Delaware, where she explores the transmission of public health and food safety relevant viruses and pathogenic bacteria. We've got Dr. Ruth Petrin, who's the president of the International Association for Food Protection and the founder of Ruth Petrin Consulting, with years of experience in identifying and tracking emerging food safety issues and trends. And then I'm Sam Alkane. I'm an assistant professor here in the Department of Food Science with a focus on dairy food safety. We've got officials from New York Ag and Markets on the call from both the food safety and dairy divisions, as well as another representative from FDA. So they're all here to help us answer questions. Remember, if you want to ask a question, you can just unmute yourself and ask, or you can type it, click the little chat button at the bottom, type it in the chat box. You can send it to everyone or to myself or Martin, and we'll read it out to the group. If you're on the phone, please use *6 to unmute yourself. And with that, I'm going to quickly pass it over to Al to give us an update on the website, and then we'll get into the rest of the office hours.
Thank you, Sam. Yeah, as you can imagine, there's not a lot of updates coming our way. I guess when it comes to food industry guidelines, we basically know what to do. We just have to keep implementing it consistently. Maybe the area that's most dynamic is vaccine information. And maybe the hot topic now is the booster shots. That's why we added the CDC guidelines on booster shots when it comes to Pfizer vaccine. Also, a lot of research is going on So there's a number of peer-reviewed papers that we added. For example, one that talks about how vaccines still work. Another one on how the COVID-19 is impacting the food safety arena. And there's another study that we will publish it as. So the recent one, a study from Israel that looked actually into booster shots. What is the effectiveness of that third Pfizer vaccine? Maybe the major update is that we are going through this major revision of our webpage where a lot of things will be archived just because most of them are not relevant in this phase of the pandemic, including the New York State laws and regulations. If anybody's interested in laws and regulations in New York State, they should follow the New York forward where they can get most up-to-date guidance. As always, if there are any questions, comments on the webpage, or if there's anything we can help you with, make sure you use our contact list on the webpage. And with this, I would turn my word back to you, Sam. Thank you very much.
Great, Al. Thanks for the update. Yeah, those boosters are an important part, right, of our mitigation practices. So be mindful and aware when you're ready to get them. So we keep working to keep COVID-19 under control. And so with that, I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Prater to kind of give us then his perspective on, the food safety challenges and the whole import world and this new era of food safety. So thank you for joining us. It's great to have you.
Well, thanks very much, Sam. I really appreciate the opportunity to be with you all today. I see that this is quite a sophisticated audience, so I did decide to go without slides. Today, I want to spend as much time as possible listening to your questions, providing some answers where I can, and getting some feedback, because I think one of the values of this forum is to be able to hear what you're hearing, share what we know, and be able to work more effectively together. So really grateful for this opportunity to spend the next several minutes with you all today. I did want to, before we jump into the questions, and I know FSVP, supply chain, COVID-19, we have a lot of things on the plate for today. I did want to spend just a few minutes talking about FDA's new era of smarter food safety. As you guys will know, this is our vision for the next 10 years. So we had Food Safety Modernization Act, or FSMA, in 2011. And so recently we have announced and published our blueprint for the new era of smarter food safety. Now this new era builds on FSMA. So all the things that we've been working on collectively to implement the Food Safety Modernization Act, we're still working on those things, so no worries there. But this really builds on that, and really, I think, sets FDA's vision for the next 10 years. So I would be remiss if I didn't give you some updates on what's happening there, because it's actually quite an active space. So as some of you will recall, and I think you can go to our website and take a look at this blueprint, but there are 4 core elements there. So there's a core element on tech-enabled traceability, one on smarter tools and approaches for prevention. So recalling that prevention is one of the main focuses of FSMA. As well, new business models and retail modernization. I'll talk a little bit about that. We have something very exciting going on even today on that. And then finally, the 4th core element, food safety culture. So this is something that's very much of interest to me, and I'm co-leading this 4th core element myself with my colleague Conrad Schwanier. So with respect to tech-enabled traceability, you all will recall that one of the remaining provisions of FSMA is to propose a rule on traceability. And so back in the early part of this year, we proposed our rule on traceability for certain foods, those on what we're calling the food traceability list. And those requirements would include establishing and maintaining records for key data elements, or KDEs, associated with different critical tracking events, or CTEs. We wouldn't be the federal government if we didn't have lots of acronyms. But this is a traceability rule for not all foods, but for certain types of foods, those that are on the food traceability list. However, we're trying to build this, and what we're really working on in New Era is making this be a foundation that folks can coalesce around and hopefully voluntarily begin to adopt traceability for all the rest of the foods. And so that's the difference. So in FSMA, we have statutory requirements, Section 204 of FSMA for certain foods. But then in New Era, we're really working on making these possible to be adopted voluntarily. We know that traceability is really sort of the Achilles heel when it comes to foodborne disease outbreaks, and our ability to rapidly and accurately trace problematic foods throughout our system is really something that's continuing to evolve. And we think with some of the new technology that's out there, we're really on the cusp of being able to have a traceability system and information that really will provide that end-to-end traceability to the greatest extent possible. And so one of the things that we have recognized under New Era is that it takes resources, investments to be able to put these systems in place. And so we recently launched something called our low cost, no cost challenge. And so this was a challenge to different solution providers. You guys have maybe seen some of these folks out on the landscape being able to provide traceability solutions. We ran a challenge through Precision FDA. And in September, we actually announced the winners. So we had 12 winners that we announced for the low cost, no cost challenge. We received 90 submissions from all over the world: US, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, China, England, France, Germany, India, Ireland, Singapore, Spain, Switzerland, and Taiwan. So you can see that we had a lot of different submissions in this, and we allowed these winners to actually conduct a webinar. So it's really interesting. I would encourage you guys to go and take a look at the website for the winners webinar series, and you will see some really innovative low cost and no cost solutions, because we want to make sure that there are no barriers to being able to enter this space of traceability. So that's your update there. With respect to smarter tools and approaches to prevention, another area that I'm involved with is looking at how to use artificial intelligence and machine learning to improve our import screening and targeting. So we've been conducting a pilot. We announced back at the early part of this year we were going to run phase 2 of our pilot, sort of building on what appeared to be a very successful proof of concept. And we ran that pilot for 6 months. And so we're now happily collecting and analyzing the results from that pilot. One of the things here with smarter tools and approaches for prevention, we recognize that the agency is sitting on a mountain of data. Certainly all those entry submissions coming into us, all the information we have from inspections and other compliance activities gives us a mountain of data. To a certain extent, that's been a challenge for us to wade through and find out all the key data components. But some of the new technology, such as machine learning or natural language processing, computer vision, there are a lot of new technologies that are going to thrive on data and allow us to process vast amounts of data. And so this is our first foray into this. We launched this pilot for seafood at the beginning, right when we launched New Era of Smarter Food Safety. And because we import 94% of our seafood, that falls squarely in my remit. And so I'm happily working on how to implement the use of these technologies. And ultimately, we will be looking to leverage even greater sources of data, going beyond those types of data that the agency has to looking at third-party data, unstructured data. Really, I think, I've heard it said that better food safety begins and ends with better data. That's where we are in the 21st century. So that's core element 2, New Era of Smarter Food Safety. Core element 3, I mentioned we have something exciting going on today. So this is new business models and retail modernization. Even before the pandemic, we had recognized the fact that there are changing trends in how consumers receive their food. There's lots of stuff going on in this space. We need to learn more about these new business models and be able to take a look at the different regulatory provisions that we have in this space. And so what we are launching just today, you can still, I think, go and register for this. For the next 3 days, we're conducting an e-commerce summit. And so we will have some leaders in the industry talking about what they're doing. We'll have state and federal, other local officials talking about what they're seeing with respect to e-commerce. And then on the third day, even our international counterparts talking about new business models and e-commerce. So that's our third core element of New Era of Smarter Food Safety. Really exciting. So you can go and take a look at that. And then finally, the fourth pillar, also just announced this week, hot off the press. So I couldn't pass up this opportunity. So many things just coming out the other end of the pipe. Food safety culture. So we have announced a webinar series that we're going to undertake with Stop Foodborne Illness. You guys might be familiar with Stop and their work and the Stop Alliance. One of the things we're doing with food safety culture is we've recognized the fact that this is really an emerging discipline within food safety. And so it's really about behaviors, about what motivates people to enact those HACCP plans or HARP-C plans, what really motivates human behavior to be able to implement food safety. It's really critical. There's a lot of academic interest in this. Food companies, food businesses are investing in food safety culture. Even in some places, we're aware that they have positions in their hierarchy now, a manager, a director of food safety culture. And they're looking, of course, to measure the return on their investment. So if this is something that is out there, if it comports with public health impacts, well, we want to be able to look at it as well and see how we might be able to take it into account. And so part of the idea of this webinar series that we're doing with Stop is to learn about what's happening out there on the space, to be able to inform what food safety culture means to us as a regulator, and to build on the information that's out there. So encourage you to take a look at this webinar series on food safety culture. So with that, that's my New Era of Smarter Food Safety update. I think I did that more quickly than if I had had a batch of slides, but hopefully that's helpful, because I know folks in this audience will be interested in a number of those things. So thank you for indulging me in that update. So at this point, I think with the balance of the time we have left, I've understood that there are some questions that you guys might have, and I'm happy to share my views on those questions. I will just say that my understanding is some of these are quite wide ranging, and so probably fall outside the purview of FDA or even outside my personal experience, but I'm happy to share my views. But for any official statements or positions of the agency, please, refer to the website, or if you need an official cleared answer on some of these questions, let me know, and we'll be sure and get that information to you. But having said that, I'm happy to dive in and try to share any perspectives that I can. And also, to the extent, I don't know, Martin, if this is, and Sam, if this is interactive, but to the extent that folks want to give me feedback, or we can have some dialogue, I would welcome that. I don't know if we're set up for that today, but I certainly welcome that.
It's definitely a kind of an open office hours format, so people will be able to type questions and we'll read them back. And some of those, yes, well, not just for you, though, we'll have the whole panel chime in on some of the answers, but definitely FDA perspective, and particularly things around FSVP, the Foreign Supplier Verification Program, and imports have been a topic of interest, right? And I think it lines up when we're looking long term. I know in my sphere, I'm a dairy guy, cheese guy, so the traceability rule and all that kind of stuff has been front of mind. And this whole food safety culture that you mentioned at the end, we've talked a lot about how having that has really helped some food companies really develop a COVID-19 culture as well, right, to address the challenges. So even though we always remind people, right, COVID-19 is not a foodborne illness, right? There is a lot of our food safety practices kind of dovetail well with helping our food facilities control COVID-19.